Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Township Council Agenda Meeting, July 8th, 2014. Meeting called to order by myself at 7:30 p.m. Please rise for flag salute. Stanton, if you would. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Here.
Mr. DePiero.
Here.
Mr. Peluso.
Here.
Mr. Stanton.
Here.
Mr. Valori.
Yes.
Others present, Mayor Barbario, Ellen Sandman, Business Administrator, Paula Cosarelli, Assistant Business Administrator, John Inglesino, Esquire, Township Attorney, Yancey Wazermis, Township Clerk. The purpose of this meeting is to set the agenda for the regular Township Council meeting of July 15th, 2014. Formal action may or may not be taken.
Statement of compliance. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on December 18, 2013, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared on both the Daily Record on December 20, 2013, and the Star Ledger on December 23, 2013, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers and local radio stations on December 18, 2013. Note, council meetings are videotaped and aired on Cablevision Public Access Channel 21 at 11 o'clock a.m. on Sundays and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Ordinances for second reading and public hearings. Any questions or concerns? If we can, Yancey, can we pull 2014:14? Any other questions or concerns?
Just one question. Table until the August meeting, or just pull it completely?
I think we should pull it completely because I understand there'll be revisions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's going to be some revisions on it.
Right.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Okay, status of adopted ordinances. Ordinance 2014:12 and 2014:15. Adopted date, June 17th, 2014. Mayoral action, June 18th, 2014. And effective date, July 7th, 2014 for both of those. Discussions, reminders, scheduled meetings, July 15th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. regular meeting. August 12th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. agenda meeting. Minutes for approval. December 17th, 2013 regular meeting, closed session meeting, and December 23rd, 2013 special meeting. Administration, bids taken. Anything on any of those?
I just have a question for the administration. We're rebidding for the sealed bids for design and purchase of electrical consumption.
For the what?
For the treatment plant. Sealed bids for the design and purchase of electrical consumption optimizing equipment for the wastewater treatment plant rebid.
No, that's a bid to be taken. No, that's a bid to be taken, you mean? Right here?
To be taken.
No, that's to be taken tomorrow.
Right.
So that's a
Sealed
re- that's a
proposals for
rebid.
supplying pumps, motors, generators. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yes. What would you like to know?
That's just going to be a rebid?
No, that's a bid to be taken.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just for various parts as we need them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Any other questions or concerns on
Oh,
bids taken or to be taken? Okay, quotations, proposals, qualifications, received none, requested none. Ordinances, any questions or concerns on any of the ordinances?
I have a question on the first ordinance, Township Council, Morris County, changing a certain name of roadway located in Oak Lake Plaza condominium from Park Drive to IMS Drive. I noticed for the last several months, they already had the name up for their change in drive without any permission from the township. Is there any penalties for that for them?
Really? No?
It's been up there for at least 2 months now that I've
2
seen.
months?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So I don't mind voting on something, but, I don't know if there's a penalty involved because they didn't ask for permission. It seems to me they did it and now they're asking for permission after the fact. And also a secondary question I have on that is that the neighbors, it's a short strip, so obviously there's only 1 or 2 neighbors on that street. Have they been notified of the name change? And have they had an open public meeting on it, and are they in agreement with it?
Well, there's not, this is an ordinance, so in the normal course, there would be an introduction of the ordinance presumably this month, and then next month, when the ordinance is up for second reading, there would be, at that point, there would be a public hearing on this ordinance and on this ordinance only. So any members of the public who have an interest in this issue should come to that meeting and speak at the public hearing.
But they should be notified in advance, the neighbors.
Well, there is not there's not a requirement on the municipality
Close
to
anyone
send
else on
a special notice.
Right.
And I would not advise that we deviate from the normal and customary procedures that the township uses in implementing ordinances. Certainly, there will be publication of the ordinance, and there will be a public hearing of the ordinance. There aren't that many people involved.
There's only 2, I believe. One is
Yeah.
the restaurant that's incoming, and one is the house that may or may not be on 46 address-wise.
From our last discussion about 2 months ago, there's only one address on that street that would change, and that's the one requesting the change.
Right. And that restaurant would not change?
No. That's from our last discussion about 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's what I understood, but I want to make sure that that's actually the case, especially since they put the sign up before granting permission.
I don't know. We should have the zoning officer see if there's a zoning violation. I actually rode by there this evening, and I saw there was like a temporary banner
That's what they're
sign out there. I don't know whether that violates any provision of the town code or whether they got a permit. I don't know. They haven't
We'll ask gentlemen.
They haven't changed the name of the street, obviously.
Right.
They can only do that by ordinance, but there was some sort of temporary banner sign, I think, that's erected there at the moment.
We will do that first thing tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, discussion, food trucks.
Yeah, Mr. Council President, we had, after the last meeting, we had circulated a draft or form of ordinance to address that issue that was brought up by a member of the public. As I indicated to the Council President, we've taken some liberties in terms of policy decisions, so I don't think the ordinance is ready for introduction. But we do have input from the administration, in particular from the health officer. My suggestion is, Mr. Council President, that you may want to appoint, an ad hoc ordinance committee just to work with my office in terms of going through and understanding the ordinance and giving us some policy feedback so that the ordinance is really tailored, to the council's liking.
I would agree with that as well, that we should give some input. Maybe an ad hoc committee would make sense.
I would like to add a few things that we noticed as we were working through this, and just a couple of questions so that you will also think about it when you want to add some things to this ordinance. First of all, I'd like to question, I don't see clarity with regard to the request of a zoning permit. Can I get a little more clarity on the zoning permit? Would it be required?
Yeah, they would need to license in the, we have a working group, we can go
Right.
through everything, but clearly they would have to be licensed. There's different classes of licenses. The ordinance goes through in, I think, pretty good detail on, you have to apply for them, et cetera. So, again, if there's further input, either on the administrative side, we
Okay.
certainly need policy direction from the council. We should do that,
Right.
I think, in the form of a working group.
Okay, just one other thing, just one other thing that should be in there because it was raised by the public. when they asked about it, and that would be, permission from the owner, and I would want it at least in writing, at the very least in writing, because then it avoids a lot of problems going into the future. And the other thing I just would like to ask on a policy for the council and mayor to think about is that do we want to set up special zones or zones already set up for things like that in this particular zone you could have one of these food vending trucks, or would we say there are areas that would not have them? So that's something I think that needs to be thought about.
When we
or
went
addressed.
through this issue about 15 years ago, the intent was, the objection then was that these trucks are competing with restaurants in town who are permanent and pay taxes to the township for their permanent facilities. And the ordinance at that time was intended for these Meals on Wheels things to be not fixed in one location. In other words, if they were driving to different office complexes to provide food to the workers in an office complex, that would be fine. But they were not supposed to be permanently fixed in one location day after day after day. That was in violation of our intent of that ordinance.
So again, that kind of input is useful in terms of formulating. We also have different classifications, so like, the good humor truck could go into the residential areas, but, the other types of trucks couldn't, and things like that I think we need some input on, and certainly issues that Councilman DePiero raised are helpful. So we would suggest a working group so that we can get some more policy guidance and get the ordinance tailored to your liking.
I also want to add to that is that, we've had the Fall Festival, and we've had a number of complaints from the restaurants that do pay taxes, reiterating what Mr. DePiero is saying, and they're paying taxes, and their restaurants are being affected by food vendors in front of them. So we may want to look at that as well, but the ad hoc committee.
The Fall Festival is only one day out of the year.
And first and foremost, on that those restaurants get first crack at that spot. And if they don't take it, we will give it to somebody else.
I want to ensure they have first option.
They do. They have first option. If they don't want it, then it gets filled with somebody else. It's just
We
like
went
Mike
through-
Councilman said, it's one
We
day.
went through this when we did the flower shop.
Yeah.
And just a quick question, in regards to the vendors that do show up to the town with their vehicles, are they inspected on a daily basis or monthly basis, by our township?
That's what, I know that Yancy and we talked about this at length, because there's other things that we wanted to make sure were also incorporated in this, this document that we're working on, and that is that, yes, to make sure that there's inspection. And then Yancy brought up a very good point, and that it's been incorporated in there. Not only inspected for the quality, which, yes, they are, but that with the type of fuel that they use to make sure that they go through a fire prevention, and that's been incorporated in that. That's a very important thing. Yancy had seen something on television and said, yeah, we got to be careful that we don't have an explosion also. So not only the health aspects of it, but also the safety aspect is. So there's many points to this, and I do understand that there would be, fees incorporated in this also. But, it's something that, as Councilman DePiero is saying, there are restaurants that do pay taxes, and this all needs to be discussed. But yes, and to
No,
answer to your health, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, and they're all great points. I just
Yes.
always worry about the children, especially when
Yes.
you go into a recreational area, the
Right.
parks, and, you don't know what they're being exposed to, just
Correct.
hopefully there's good quality,
Yes.
whatever they're going to be, selling at that time.
Yes.
Worry about that.
Yeah. That's- All good points.
Okay, so we'll do that, then we'll put together a ad hoc committee to work on that. Any other comments? Okay, resolutions.
Yeah, Council President, I noticed that the resolution for JCP&L has been removed from the agenda again for the second month in a row. Now, that resolution simply asked JCP&L to consider an alternate route. And for 2 months in a row now, that resolution has been pulled from the agenda by the council president with no objections from any of the council members. I have to conclude then that this council is not concerned about the plight of 65 homes that will be adversely affected by JCP&L's primary route.
Okay, well, first off, that is an extremely false comment to make, that we are not concerned with the residents of that
If you
area.
weren't concerned, you wouldn't have pulled it
Well-
off 2 months in a row.
Like we've stated before, Mr. DePiero, you want us, and that ordinance stated that, being that there were numerous residents that have gotten up and spoken against the first route to go with the alternate route. At last week, you have stated that there was only 3 homes that would be affected on the alternate route. Last week, we had numerous residents get up and speak against the alternate route. So again, we're talking about looking at pinning one neighborhood against another. I also spoke with Freeholder Mastrolangelo, Director Mastrolangelo, in reference to their resolution that they did, and he stated to me that their resolution does not say that they are in favor of the alternate route, that they are just looking for a less impactful route to all residents, not saying that they're favoring that. So,
I'm not concerned about the freeholders. I'm concerned about the 65
okay, well, I'm just
homes
saying
in
that
Parsippany.
that was brought up at the
Okay?
meeting.
Now, you've
So-
had the drawings from
Yes.
JCP&L. You've had time to review them. You've had time to reach out and talk to myself or Ken Dolsky. None of you have reached out to
I
the-
have, hold on,
Just to us.
I
None of you.
have a meeting with Mr. Dolsky on Friday.
Of which you
I am-
just agreed to, I believe, today.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
After
So
2
obviously-
months of asking for this resolution to be on the agenda.
Hold on a second. So, okay, so I am meeting with him. You want a resolution, Mr. DePiero. If anything, we should do a resolution where it does not impact any residents of Parsippany, not just one particular neighborhood, and pin it against another one. I don't care if it's 60 and there's only 7 homes in the other route where it's going to affect. Obviously, it's more than 3, what you stated, because we had more than that many people come up at the last meeting stating their opposition against that. So
Well, that's
I
all-
have no problem with a
wait a minute,
resolution.
Wait a minute. That's only because they received an anonymous flyer in their mailboxes alerting them to come here and object.
Okay.
They have not seen either route, okay? So those people came in because they received a flyer and did not know what they were objecting to, all right? You have the drawings. Those people did not. I would sit down with any of those people and show them the 2 routes.
Okay, Mr. DePiero,
And you
first
c-
off,
and
you're
you had
stating
that
that this is
opportunity
me.
too.
Obviously, we had other council members that were also in favor of pulling that off of the agenda. I don't think, my personal opinion, I can't speak for the rest of the council members here, is that I don't think we should have a resolution that states drive it down one neighborhood's mouth versus another. I think that we should have a resolution that says we are not in favor of any route that is going to impact any of our residents. And that is which, when I spoke to Director Freeholder Mastrolangelo,
Okay.
he stated that they're supporting, they want a least impactful route. They are not supporting the alternate route, and they have also said that they're trying to get all of the towns involved together for a meeting. So I think that we should have that meeting, and if anything, I'm all in favor for a resolution that says we support a route that does not affect any of our residents in Parsippany.
That's a stick your head in the sand kind of approach. That will not happen.
right,
Okay.
Mr. DePiero.
And Monfield's approach that says they want PSE&G to take over JCP&L, that's not going to happen either. So you can take all these kinds of antics you want to make some of the public happy, but the bottom line is the clock is ticking. JCPL is going to make a decision, and
Right.
Parsippany has
And-
taken no stance at this point in time.
And Mr. DePiero,
either
hasn't our
way.
council even
Shame
said
on
that
us.
this has
All right.
nothing, that how much power is the council going to have for this?
At least we
Okay.
should express our opinion.
Right, and that should be for
we
it
haven't
not
done
to
that yet.
affect any of the residents of Parsippany, any. We represent the entire town, not just one neighborhood.
All right, okay. You,
Okay.
you stick your head in the sand.
Okay,
Mr. DePiero,
just like you've done in the
with,
past.
just with all due respect, you made an inference in regards to the entire council, which I don't think is fair in any way, shape, or form. So,
No one else objected when he took
so,
it, when the
Mr.
president
DePiero,
took it off
if-
the agenda twice.
If that's what you're going to insinuate in front of the public, now you're going to get it now. First of all, I went to those areas of where the power lines could actually be placed, obviously in the primary area and then the alternate area. And matter of fact, for 20-plus years, I was a police officer in the town. I know the neighborhoods very well. Secondly, where you shortchanged the folks altogether was on the first resolution. You should have had another alternate plan in that resolution to say, if in fact they wind up choosing that area, the first area for the primary location for those power lines, then we should fight them left and right to the very end to then place those lines under the ground if we have that option. And then what is the environmental committee, what was their impact on it? Have they come back on a decision with that? So your resolution, which I admire, which I support, could have went much further in detail than what you provided. And in regards to the other neighborhood, there are environmental concerns there also. And there's more than just 2 or 3 houses that you put on record that it's going to affect. And it's the same with those folks. If in fact power lines go there, then those folks there should fight tooth and nail with the council to put the lines underground. So do not insinuate that I was part of burying my head in the sand. You just didn't do your homework good enough, and you made an inference that was totally off mark. And thirdly, just for the record, you send out an email to all the council members concerning this. CC the mayor. Now, I didn't want to go far with this, which I would assume send out an email to all the council members. I believe that's violation of the Sunshine Law, where you can't even discuss that via email. So you're the one that puts out a semi-threatening message, like, what are we going to do with it? So don't make inferences based on whatever agenda you have. And I am totally against these
Just for the
power
public's
lines
knowledge, the email
altogether.
said you have all received the maps. I'm available to sit down anytime you want to go over the different plans.
Mr. Tapiro, do you
And,
want me to
and
read
not,
your
and
email
not
that you
one
sent out?
council member reached out to me.
So you didn't violate the Sunshine Law by sending the email to everybody? Yes or no?
Yes, so sue me.
So you did. So you did.
So sue me.
So obviously,
in the meantime,
so it's okay for you
in the meantime,
to
none of
violate
you-
that and then accuse
All right,
in the
one at
past
a
as
time.
council.
None of
so
you
you did
responded.
something that was inappropriate, so you shouldn't be voting on it, okay? And the manner that what you sent out was inappropriate. You asked for this right now because you made an inference that I was not for supporting these folks at the power lines. I'm supporting both neighborhoods. You just didn't go far enough on the details with it. And if anybody wants the copy of the email, I'll provide it.
Just let me make a few comments here,
Go ahead.
because I think everybody has good intentions here. I don't think it's a fact, but myself and my Councilman DePere, we've sat down with Jersey Central Power and Light, and I can tell you firsthand that we all want to make it as easy as we can for every neighborhood. But in the end, it's going to come down to Jersey Central Power and Light deciding where they want to go and what's most cost effective for them. I've been through it already with PSE&G. The township fought it. We brought it all the way to Trenton, and the Board of Public Utilities voted 9-0 in favor of that route. What we've been doing, we met with Montville, and we're trying to find a compromise between Parsippany and Montville. We think we might have one, but then, again, it's our compromise. It doesn't mean that's Jersey Central Power and Light's compromise. The fact is that I will tell you this about Parsippany. We did our homework. We got the maps. I had my secretary get the maps, and I had Councilman DePere with me, Ellen with me in that meeting. And it seems like we don't want to pin one neighborhood against another. Of course, I agree.
Thank you, Mayor.
We don't want to pin one town against another town. But Parsippany eventually is going to have to make a stand, and we're trying to make that stand with Montville. We're trying to do it together. And I will say this publicly. They went rogue at one of their council meetings, in my opinion. Well, we had a meeting in my office, and I felt that they, we shared information and stuff like that. And how could we? And they're going to form a committee with Parsippany to find the route that's the least impact on both towns. And that's the only compromise I think, hopefully, we can come up with. But you know what? Parsippany can say, hey, Montville, we agree. And Jersey Central Power and Light is going to do what's best for the majority of the residents that they service. So But I will say this, everybody has the good intentions. Councilman Roy, I understand.
Thank you,
what you're
Mayor.
saying.
We really do.
Councilman
Do.
DePiero as well. So that being said, we're not going to stop. Parsippany is going to keep striving, moving forward, negotiating with Jersey Central Power and Light and with Montville. And hopefully Jersey Central Power and Light says, oh, you know what, this works out here. You know, there's easements involved. There's, DEP's involved. You have a lot of things that are involved here that I think can work out. But can I guarantee it? Absolutely not. Because I saw what happened on the first time around. And it's going to work out the best we can try, and that's what we're doing.
Mayor, I totally agree with, we're all on the same page as far as what we want to do here. That's why I'm just saying is if we do a resolution, let's, we voice our opinion that we're against any route that's going to impact any of our residents.
Right.
Not just, like any of them. Not just
And I think
one
if we could do a
particular route.
resolution together with Montville, that's amicable for both sides, of course. I think that's the best route, because now you got two towns working together, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
We all want what's best for the town. We don't want to hurt the neighbors.
Mr. Inglesino, I just also want to note for the record, you had sent me a letter concerning a potential conflict with voting on any ordinances. So in response to Mr. DePiero's comment that none of the councilmen, I just want to make it clear that you had indicated that there could be a potential conflict, and it's at my discretion to abstain from any votes because I may live in a property that's close to one of the lines. My intention was to abstain from any votes in the future, but I just want to make sure that you're in agreement with that.
I think that's right. And again, conflicts are a fact of life. They're going to arise. The question is how you deal with them. And given the proximity of your property and the few number of properties and the fact that you had indicated that there would be a diminution in value, in your opinion, to your property and that of your folks' property, if the lines went there, to the extent it was one resolution versus the other, I think that it would have been appropriate for you to abstain as you indicated. So I think that's correct.
Okay, does that also preclude from discussing any solutions and have an open dialogue with residents? Because I did reach out to Mr. Dolsky to meet with him, but unfortunately because of that, I was not able to respond to him to have a meeting.
Well, why don't we, I think that the prudent thing to do would be to discuss these issues offline, between you and I.
Okay.
I just want to also go on record that because of the question about how information was pertained by the Parsippany, the mayor alluded to it. I just wanted to go on record as we did our due diligence. Parsippany, Justin from our engineer reached out to Addie, our consultant, and said when he was at the January meeting, may I take one of these documents? And she said yes. So he took the document. That's where we got the original one. Then when the mayor's secretary went on the internet to find out some additional information, she noticed that there were 2 alternate routes. And what she did was she mentioned it to Justin. She got the copies, and when Justin saw that Justin, our engineer, when he saw that there were 2 alternate routes mentioned, he called up Addie again and requested the information. So, I think it bodes well for us. And the reason why I drilled down to get this information was I was called by your former representative, Mr. Obremski, and he asked how we got the information. Did we ask for it, or did someone from JCP&L give it to us? So I wanted to also go on record. Then his boss called Mr. Anderson and said, we want to work with both Parsippany and Montville. We wanted to just know where the information. So JCP&L actually did reach out for Parsippany. We will have a dialogue, and I went on record. I took the opportunity. If JCP&L was calling me, that's, you want to jump on that right away. That doesn't happen often because we're saying, that. And I said, we really need to have a real meeting, another meeting with JCP&L, and that will take place after the mayor and the group meet with Montville and come to terms. So that was very refreshing that JCP&L did reach out for us to garner information as to where the documents came from, and it was through Parsippany's pursuit of information. That's how we got it. So, and that will be clearly communicated to Montville too. And I did have a conversation with Victor with regard to that, my counterpart in Montville. So we're, we're working together.
Because we share those documents with Montville, so.
Mrs. Salmon, also, I want to add to it, since you're newly appointed to the position. JCP&L did have open public meetings at the Holiday
January,
Inn.
yes.
And that was in November of last year.
November, not January.
And they were giving out information to the public, and they were mailing letters to the public as well.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I misspoke, not January, it was November, and that's when Jason did ask if he could take, that's why we had the bound copies, because everybody was saying when we did meet with Montville, they said, where did you get those bound copies? And we weren't privy, because Justin wasn't with us, so, and then we found out where we got them from. We clearly communicated to our, our neighbor. I mean, we want to remain neighbors and work together on this for the good of the whole.
And are these meetings going to be open to the public as well, that you're alluding to with Montville?
Right now, it would just be with,
Myself, Councilman
yeah,
DePiero,
a
and-
representative from the council and ourselves. But the next meeting that we will then go jointly to JCP&L and say, and I have Mr. Anderson's number. I said, give me your number, because after we do meet, then we'll ask for a more public meeting, because I know when there's a group, maybe they'll hear a little bit better.
Yeah, I know Mr. DePiero had handed out something from the freeholders, their resolution, and it said in the spirit of having an open meeting with
Yes.
not only Montville, but the entire public.
Correct.
I'm fully supportive of that.
Right.
It should be open to the public.
Right.
And let everybody, all neighbors, hear out their case.
Right, and this is one step at a time, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to, take a look. You know what happens. You need to have a smaller group look at it, and then move forward. But the public is certainly, that's what we're here for. That's who we're here for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, one thing I would just like to add for the record, with all due respect, Mr. DePiero, the ordinance, the resolution was pulled after consultation with other council members that also wanted it pulled. So this was just not my decision. Thank you. Okay, any other questions on any of the resolutions?
I have a question. Talking about pulling resolutions, I've noticed that the one for Epic Solutions was pulled. Did the administration provide some information on that?
It was pulled off of the list of resolutions because action was supposed to be taken on it tonight. It's on at the last few pages where
It's
we'll
on
be
there.
asked
It's
to
on
vote on it, yeah.
It's on there.
Sorry, I forgot to note that in my email.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I have an additional question on the resolution for awarding the contract to BlackRock Enterprises, top of page 4, for over $1 million. Do we still have in place the ordinances that prevents them from opening up the roadways, from public utilities from opening roadways and really breaking up our $1 million investment?
There's an ordinance, I don't know, don't quote me on the ordinance, that if a road is just newly paved,
5
they,
years?
they can't break the road for, I think, 3 years, something like that.
As I recall, the ordinance
I believe it's
states
3.
that we're supposed to notify all of the utilities that have underground facilities that we're going to repave, we're going to rebuild this road. So if they didn't need to do any work, they need to do it before we rebuild the road.
Right.
So I think that the administration needs to make sure we've notified them that once we start this road, they can't dig it up for 5 years.
I believe that's 3 years. It's 3
Whatever,
years.
Right.
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Councilman, I would say that that has been done because we would not move forward. And proof in the pudding is that we just received $225,000 from the state of New Jersey as a grant towards this. So they would not award that grant if we hadn't communicated to them through our engineering department that all utilities are in proper order. So I will, but we will, it's always good to double check. But we did receive that grant this year for Vale Road.
Mrs. Salmon, I just want to mention, since you mentioned the word grants,
Yes.
I was very happy to see that there's 2 resolutions on here for desilting and desnagging for the Whippany River
Yes.
and the Little Rockaway River.
Right.
That's something that I brought up during the budget hearings with our township engineer, and I'm very glad to see that's moving forward, because that's one of the things that we started to do in order to prevent flooding in
Yes.
Lower Lake Hiawatha and parts of Parsippany.
Right.
So that's a great Great job. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
that's also something, Councilman, so you know, that we will be, if I'm wrong,
I will never.
Administrator, let me know. I'm wrong before. That we're going to try to share services with Montville on that as well.
Yes. Yes, we did say that. If you're, if I could, not at this time, but there was a resident that came out and gave us a list of 5 things that she was concerned about. Like, for example, finally, I just want to say on the hanging wire
Yes.
is gone.
Oh, good.
Is gone, and it took a lot of work to get that done. But why I brought this one up is at another time when it's an opportunity for the administrator to speak, which she doesn't stop, I think. No, when I can speak is that with regard to you talking about getting a grant. I know, you can laugh, it's okay, life is short. But anyway, I hope when I do speak, I'm saying some good news, and that is, you talked about that fence that goes along I guess it's
Route
right
46.
on Route 46, and you had asked about, what about a grant for that? That's DOT, and we're going to push hard and fast. I contacted our person that works on these types of issues in the mayor's office, and she is on that to say, first of all, if anybody, this fence is of the poorest quality that I've ever seen.
Yes.
It's supposed to prevent people from crossing over it. You would lean on this and you could step across it. The mayor told me he did try, and no. That's where the
That's where it goes.
But I mean, I drove past that. If you drive past this is totally ridiculous and unacceptable. You know, they have to, we're the locals. We're the people that, have the opportunity to, on an evening to see people come out and take the time from their evening and come and ask us to do something. Well, Trenton's not that far. We're going to see where we go with this, but this needs to be addressed, and this fence is unacceptable. It has to be torn down and put up properly. This is not a proper
Fence, yeah.
fence, and it's, yes, absolutely. So we are working on that, and since I have it, just the one other thing on that particular one is, there were 5 items that we addressed, but we finally, with regard to the wire, I want to just let you know, it was, after much ado, it was definitely JCP&L, and they did, oh, no, it wasn't JCP&L's wires. It was Verizon. And finally, we were able to get through to the proper people from Verizon to remove that. And then there was the other issue of an unsightly area that we did have Jen go out and look at. Right now, it's overgrown, so we are going to get in touch with the owners of that property and work on that to clean that up. So I wanted to just go on record with both the mayor and the council, but to the council in particular, because I see the mayor every day, I'm very lucky, and to the public, that when things are brought up at this sacred place, they will be addressed, and they will be dealt with as quickly as we can possibly do. As you know, we have to deal with state agencies and other things, but what we can do ourselves, we will do, and that's a commitment from the administration to you.
Good question. Since I see that you're very motivated, which I'm happy that you're getting things done for us. I see Hank looking at me over here. I know he brought to my attention last week, and I spoke to Paula also. There was issues in regard to still garbage down in Lake Hiawatha there. So
that's nice.
since we're on that topic, maybe we'll make Hank happy in the back there and all of us. So
Something about, I think it was Knoll Gardens was brought up.
Yes.
And I went there.
Oh, Nick, sorry about Nick.
Yeah, Nick.
I went to Knoll Gardens. I went to Knoll Gardens. I got to tell you, I went to Knoll Gardens, Councilman, and it was completely clean. It was, in fact, it was very upkept.
Did he do
I don't think it was him that brought it up. I thought it was the lady that brought it up. And then I went to Knoll Manor. The 2 different, and both of them
Yes.
were clean.
Okay,
Garbages,
good.
everything around it was clean. Now, Lower Lake Hiawatha section is going to be addressed.
Okay.
And we're going to have to talk, I'll be speaking to the council president on maybe enforcing, well, not just enforcing, I know Greg Snyder's eyes in the back over there. We're going to have to get tougher on our merchants over there.
Okay.
This is certain, they got to clean up. I've gotten several calls, and I do agree with Nick. In fact, I might be using Nick's services very shortly. He had a really good idea, and I'll give you, I showed it to Ellen, and she loved it. He's going to go around. I'm not going to volunteer your services. You volunteered at first. He's going to go around and clean up the whole section over there because it's a nice area over there.
It's beautiful.
If it's upkept. And you can ask Greg. I'm on his case constantly, and I do apologize, Greg, but it's we have to get tougher. That's what's going to have to happen.
And thank you, everyone, for obviously addressing that. Thank you.
You know, we did meet and talk about the garbage. One of the things we also spoke about is putting together a workforce. You know, this township has a wealth of residents that I hear. I mean, I think it's wonderful who come to the meetings. Part of gathering for our green team is part of a group we'd like to have. There's a sweeping apparatus that we can get groups out there and cleaning in front of the businesses and have businesses actually contribute toward at least feeding our volunteers and being part of the team and keeping our business district clean. In addition to, we are looking into the solar operated garbage cans that actually compact the garbage. So, and you can get a computer signal indicating the garbage is now full at the corner of Minnehaha and North Bellbrook Road.
Okay.
So, you know, there are a lot of options out there, and we are working. And you know, one of the things is we have a resource right in front of us,
Great.
and we're gonna implement that and work together.
Yeah. Thank you for addressing.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks on that, because
Thanks, John. I have a question, Mr. Inglesino. In regards to the resolution for the execution of settlement agreement with the Garden Apartments, were you directly involved with that? Familiar with it?
Yes.
I just have a general question.
We're going to be going into closed session so that I can brief you on that contract, and that will be in closed session under contract negotiations.
Okay, because I see you listed a number of garden communities here, but I know it's right off the top of my head, there's 5 that's absent now, the 7,936 units we have in town.
I'm going to brief you in closed session
Okay.
about that.
Okay, very good. The other question I have is for the retail liquor license renewals. You know, I've noticed over the years being at council meetings, they come before us and we just say yes and approve them, and you know, they're reputable places. But we haven't seen any backup information like the number of arrests possibly at a liquor outlet, or the number of underage patrons that were caught with obtaining liquor. And what the enforcement is at these liquor stores. Like I noticed at ShopRite, they have a security guard and they card everybody.
Right.
But can we get some backup information to help support why we're approving these liquor licenses?
You certainly can if you'd like. You go through the license renewals go through an internal process at the municipality, so they come to you at that point. If there were violations of the license for underage sales, et cetera, of course, those would be subject to an action down at the state, at the ABC. But you know, these are coming to you on recommendation through the appropriate checks in the township, which I believe include a review by the police department as well. So, you know, if that's not sufficient for you, then perhaps we can discuss offline. You're not taking any action on these tonight. This is an agenda meeting for action next time. We can certainly discuss offline what additional information you would like to see to be able to make your decision.
Great. I just want to protect the children of our community and make sure that, you know, the liquor is being sold to the appropriate people and preventing underage drinking.
Okay, Mr. Stan.
I'm sorry, the clerk has just reminded me, these were already approved and are being amended to fix a typo. We didn't, you know, so that's what's being done. These have already been approved by the
Okay,
council.
so they went through.
Yeah, these have already gone through, but,
Okay. Township,
said-
oh, sorry.
never mind, go ahead.
Engineer report, July 2014. Status road resurfacing, put in stone area. Developer installed a water main sanitary sewer line, portion put in stone road. Township accepted ownership of Maine at their November 12th meeting. Council, the installation of sanitary laterals has been completed. Paving of the road should take place this month. No council action required.
Okay, Chief Financial Officer.
yes.
Two.
Anything?
No,
Or you used up
I'm
all
wearing
your
that.
time?
Yes, no, everything is in.
Anything on that?
good shape.
Okay.
I have a
Yes,
question are you filling that spot right now? So
I am semi.
I just want,
I can give you the full answer.
No, it just, actually, I think it's going to be helpful for everybody, and I know that you're motivated, and obviously, you're already fulfilling a lot of, obligations that the town has to correct right now. Going forward, because we have to build our budget, and, the mayor had discussed in the past for next year, is there any way, based on, obviously the mayor's discretion, that we could start kind of almost getting like a status report somehow, shape, or form on each department, so we kind of know where we're going at with almost like a trend analysis, so we could kind of build our budget for the following year, because I know the mayor came up with a good idea in regards to, developing a finance committee, which is great. And, since you're brand new, we might as well obviously throw everything at you at a one shot. So I was just wondering, how we could come up with
Here's
a
what I would
formula.
like to do, because there's some things I do want to discuss with you and the council president, which is set up a meeting shortly,
Okay,
and we'll set guidelines on the meetings monthly.
okay.
Because usually we start the budget process, I think everything goes out in October, and then, but prior to that, we could discuss, not a problem whatsoever.
Just so it's easier next time out,
Yeah.
dealing with
Right.
the budget, so we're not here till
I
2
enjoy the
o'clock in
1
the morning.
o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We have been. So we just want to make it easier on everybody.
All right, that's fine.
And-
I don't need.
And Mayor, one other question for you, because I know we have 1 or 2 folks that might be in the audience now. In regards to the Transparency Committee meeting.
You beat me to it. I'm going to give you some dates tomorrow,
Okay,
and we'll, on whatever dates work, 'cause I have to see, because now that Ellen's
Yeah.
got the seat warm, only thing we won't have is a chief financial manager, but right now she'll be there in that capacity.
and again, if it's prior to one of our council meetings, even if the, obviously.
Yeah,
the
we could
township
do
attorney's
something
here,
like 6:30.
Yeah, there might be some questions they might want to ask of him, so if we could come up with some dates, so at least that'll help us build in the budget too.
That's fine.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
And I just want to go on record as, although the mayor is saying, October is its time, many years, when I was in Denville, I really would start the process, I'll know it's summertime. I'm sorry, it didn't seem like.
You know,
it
I
was-
guess you
That's
don't.
I
something
didn't
else
know,
you have to
is
get
it,
used
can
to.
you hear me now? I don't know, it didn't sound like it was on.
Yeah, go
I usually can project, but I guess I'll use the mic. I just wanted to go on the record is, oftentimes, to meet that need and that goal, you start the latter part of August. I know it's vacation time, but that's what seemed to work really well, to bring everybody on board and to see where we are, what's happening, what are some of the things that we were able to do during the course of the year to save funding. I mean, Paula just mentioned it. We can utilize our resources in our residents,
Absolutely.
helping us do things, looking for some additional grants, getting, doing that and working together to make that happen. But I will say this, and then just having an opportunity to really see some of the things, not only the larger things, which are, the capital budget, but which sometimes there's certain things that you say, why did we do it this way? Why can't we change this? And to have that conversation and communication, it really makes a difference when then you're sitting down on the budget, because you've wrapped your head around it.
No, great, I'm
And
truly looking
I'm
forward to
very
working with
happy
you
to
on
do
this.
that. I really enjoy that part of, the role in the finance arena in public administration. So
Thank you,
I look forward to it.
thanks.
Council President, I don't want to be rude. I'm going to go stand over there. A member of the public told me, my back is just killing me, so I'm going to stand. I can't.
Okay.
I don't want to be disrespectful if you think I'm standing to be that.
Under the engineering report,
Do some jumping jacks.
the Manor Lake Dam
Hang out
should
some
also
push-ups.
be read.
It should be read. I asked him to put it on that for that reason.
Okay, yeah.
I asked him.
Going back to engineer report, Manor Lake Dam. Manor Lake's the only township-owned lake. The dam's in need of replacement. Our consultant has been working with the DEP to obtain permits for the replacement and dredging of sediment from the lake. The revised hydraulic and hydraulic analysis H&H study was sent to DEP last week in response to DEP's latest comments. Once the H&H study is approved, plans, permit documents will be finalized. No council action required.
Okay.
Mike, I'm glad you asked for that to be read. There was a resident that did ask for information on that, and unless we communicate to our public what we're working on, they don't realize how many times Jason had to send back Justin had to send back documentation to meet the needs that DEP. You know how they'll ask you to send something back within 3 weeks, and then they take 3 to 6 months in which to return it to you. So there is action on this, and we're moving forward. So thank you for asking that to be read into the record, because I asked them to put it on for that reason.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sandman, I have an additional question on the Manor Lake Dam. Not working too well. I'm going to speak a little louder. In reference to the dam, as far as your ability, you indicated that you're very good at grant writing.
Yes.
Have you researched any grants yet that we can possibly apply towards the dam with this, or the hydraulics or something?
No, in deference to, no, I have not. It's just a matter of
Just
time.
so.
It's just a matter of time. But we are working with the Whippany watershed, though, on it. So there is something. And Paula would be, she does attend, yeah. We're always looking for dollars.
Great.
Yes, thank you. Good job, Paula, thank you.
Okay, attorney, resolutions, none.
One item to report on, Mr. Council President. You may recall, I reported to the council that back on June 6th, Parsippany Focus actually had a headline that reads, "Parsippany breaks Oprah law." And Parsippany Focus, who I understand is a personal website of Mr. Cahill, alleged in a pretty lengthy story that Parsippany broke the Open Public Records Act by refusing him immediate access to W-2 forms for township employees. I had indicated at that time that I thought Mr. Cahill's argument had absolutely no merit. Please report that that has been confirmed. On June 24th, the Government Records Council dismissed Mr. Cahill's complaint, and has the written order by the Government Records Council is completely in accord with the statements that I made at the last council meeting, so that matter is concluded.
Okay. Township offices, committees, none. Communications. Okay. Correspondence. Applications, any questions, concerns?
I do have a question, very similar to the liquor license. We're talking about the limousine owners' licenses. Something was in my packet here concerning the storage of vehicles and how many vehicles of limousines for Sungun. That was through the Board of Adjustments, so it's not pertaining to us, but it opens up some questions. Do we get additional information on this, where these facilities store their vehicles? It's not in residential neighborhoods, and their driving records and accident records and stuff like that?
This is actually part of a lengthy process. If you see, they're actually renewing for 2014.
Yes.
That's because they've started their process from last year, and we've been working with them this amount of time for them to have all their paperwork in place to be able to renew. It is a very lengthy process that that was put in place by the council by new ordinance last year. And
We
and
modernized that ordinance and
Yeah.
really strengthened it, and really strengthened the safeguards for the town. I think you'll find that ordinance is as strong as any in the state.
Do you know what ordinance number that is?
not off the
I
top
don't
of
know
my
off the
head.
top of my head. I don't know, but it's in your code. It's in your code.
Ordinance number so we can see it, that'd be great. Again, several of us councilmen are new to council, so we weren't here last year when it was approved. So it'd be nice to see when licenses come up that we actually have some sort of checklist with all this information in front of us.
It's a very long checklist, and it includes police department approval. They have to go get fingerprinted, individual drivers, owners. It's a very long process. They need approval from the state. We need to make sure they have all their proper business registrations with the state, IRS. I mean, it's a long process.
We have a checklist, like a one-pager that says,
It's a one-page
these
checklist.
things are completed, they're checked off and signed off by the clerk.
It's one page. Yeah, we managed to squeeze it all onto one page.
Would you
The
be able to
checklist.
provide that to us
Yeah.
in the checklist
For sure.
as per the approval of each limousine company?
Yes.
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. As you come forward, if you could just make sure you sign in, state your name and address. You'll be given 5 minutes.
I don't know.
Mike's not on.
I don't think it's on.
Do a little test.
Okay. Well, it's now Green light's on. Okay, if it's not working, I can't fix it.
It's working now.
So let me just say thank you very much for all the energy around the conversation regarding JCP&L, and for providing us with updates on what's been going on, especially with conversations with JCP&L, interactions with Montville, and potential interactions or upcoming interactions with Montville and the freeholders. So this was a very good update, even though, as Mike said, we're at the 11th hour and 59 minutes here, where JCP&L can file any day, and they may have already filed today, for all we know. So I just wanted to thank you for all being very involved and working on this. I do want to just provide one piece of information or clarification when you think about this situation, and that is when we define homeowners who are being impacted by the power line. In my mind, and I may not have made this perfectly clear, although I think I've tried, but getting up here and having 3 minutes, it's tough. There's different levels of being impacted. It's sort of like the tornado classification or whatever you want to call it. There's people who can see power lines, and they're an eyesore and they're annoying. And then there's people who have an easement on their property, which means that the power line might literally be on their property, or their trees and shrubs and things are being cut down, and the uses that they can now have for their own private property are now limited, and so there's all different degrees. When I talk about being impacted, and for example, the alternate route impacting 3 homes, I mean there's 3 homes that from my measurements on the map would have easements. Others will see it. It'll be annoying. It'll be something that nobody wants to have, even at that stage. But when I say 3 homes will be impacted, they'll have easements. Going on the main route or the original preferred route from JCP&L, at least 28 homes would have easements. Many more would see the power lines. So I just wanted to tell you that was kind of my definition of being impacted. So when we talk about this 56 homeowners, and there's a bunch of other homeowners who got up and said they're going to be impacted, there's just different degrees here. And while it's all annoying and nobody wants any of it, but some is a little bit more tolerable than others. So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you.
That I'm still stiff from snow shoveling. Push it right down, more right into my driveway every time it goes. My wife is quite sick. I really need the driveway here. Happens again, you're gonna get a phone call. Well, I'll see you at Pathmark or Southway, one of the two. I live at 65 Norman Avenue. And I'm one of those people that is really concerned. Because what I've heard so far, now how accurate it is, I don't know.
Sir, if you could just speak into the mic when you're
What are
done.
you writing
That's
there?
okay.
I'm not used to using a microphone. There's a switch.
There you go. You can take it out or leave it in there.
Take it out of there, huh? Is it on now?
There you go.
Hallelujah. I was taught for 31 years, and I could make myself heard pretty well without a microphone, but I am very concerned because what I've heard are 2 basic possibilities. They'll put an easement across my property 50 feet in from the line in the back, which means they'll cut down a 150, 200-year-old tree in the backyard which shades my house. Now that is going to make my house unbearable. Or they will simply seize the property by eminent domain, which means that they will give me probably not the actual real fair market value, but the reduced fair market value as adjusted for flood. Now, that's bad enough for me, and I have all this stuff that I got to move myself and ship and store and everything else and try to find another place to live. But my neighbors, most of them have mortgages. Now, what's going to happen to those mortgages? If JCP&L seizes those properties by eminent domain, they're not going to pay off their mortgages. Those mortgages will be those people's debt for the rest of their lives.
They're going to ruin them. They'll throw them out of the house and ruin them financially. Now, there's something else that's really beginning to bug me. I always get the feeling that Lower Lake Hiawatha is somehow considered a low-level part of Parsippany. And among the things, when the river flooded, how come nobody came down afterwards and started cleaning out the logs and debris that's piling up in that river now? How about rebuilding some of those flood walls down there so that it isn't so easy for the flood to go over that? On top of that, I don't know if the pumping station is even working anymore. Is it?
Yeah, it's been repaired.
Hallelujah. Now, also, I think you have to talk to, well, it has been broken for a long time. It was broken before the last flood. How about talking to the Jersey City dam up there? How about making sure that they are forced to open those gates before it overflows? What happened, I saw the river crest. I can see the water coming out of the manhole. The river was going down. They let the water out, and I got 4 feet of water in my house. So I know that if that water had been released earlier, it would have alleviated at least a lot of damage. And by the way, one other little thing, maybe it's not that important, but something that they did before this flood was they came in and put curbing down. Beautification, they called it. Put the curbing down. They cut down every tree on the township right away. Now, what you did then was to allow the water to simply roll right into the river. Those trees stopped the water flow. And I'm not just saying this because I taught geology for 31 years. I'm saying it because there have been studies done showing that when you do this, you exasperate the flooding situation. So please, you've got to think about these things. You've got to let them go. These people's lives are involved. One last thing. I know that many of you don't want to hurt anybody, that you're concerned with being fair, but you can't be. It's no such thing. Somebody's going to get hurt in this business. And what my mind is, you hurt the least number of people, the least amount. And if you say that it's equal to 3 houses on Montville getting a bad view as opposed to 28 houses in Lake Hiawatha are going to be destroyed, there's something wrong with your logic. I'm sorry, it's not equal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see him in, we go to Pathmark together a lot.
You're getting off easy tonight.
Hey, listen, well, we got a few more speakers yet. Hey, you can't be loved by everybody. But sometimes you don't want to be loved by everybody.
My name is Bob Venezia. I live at 102 Warren Drive. And after watching the proceedings of the most recent council meetings on the township website, I wanted to come tonight to state my support for your efforts to rezone several lots in the Troy Meadows Preserves from residential to recreation, conservation, and wildlife, or RCW. As I listened to the public discussion on the ordinance, I was surprised that the objections by the wildlife preserves had nothing to do with the preservation of the land, but rather its monetary value. Their arguments seem very weak. There's no denying that the rezoning to RCW diminishes the value of the land. However, in order to realize that value, the land would have to be sold to a developer, which is contrary to wildlife preserves' repeated assurances that they would never do that. But even if circumstances force them to break that promise, or if they should ever default on a loan that uses this land as collateral, the RCW designation will still protect the land no matter who takes possession of it. Based on the usages allowed for residential properties and the recent filings submitted by wildlife preserves, it's entirely reasonable that the council would want to protect this land in perpetuity through rezoning. In fact, Parsippany is not the first municipality to have reservations about possible development in Troy Meadows. In 2009, with the help from state and federal agencies, the township of East Hanover purchased a 163-acre section of Troy Meadows, known as Hatfield Swamp, from wildlife preserves. East Hanover's concern about development was clearly expressed in a quote from an op-ed piece entitled "Purchase of Hatfield Swamp, Positive for East Hanover." And that appeared in the June 21st, 2009 edition of the Daily Record. The column was submitted on behalf of Representative Rodney Freeland Eisen, Joseph Panula, the mayor of East Hanover, and David Epstein, president of the Land Conservancy of New Jersey. And in it, they state, although Hatfield Swamp was owned by Wildlife Preserves, a nonprofit conservation group, the property was not permanently preserved, as the organization was free to sell the property for a variety of uses. In 2014, Parsippany finds itself in the same situation that East Hanover dealt with in 2009. Hopefully our outcomes will be the same, and Parsippany can purchase the lands in contention using the large surplus that currently exists in the Open Space Fund. Lastly, related to Parsippany's possible purchase of the land within Troy Meadows, there is an excerpt from Wildlife Preserve's website that I would like to bring to the council's attention. It reads as follows, and I quote, 2009, Wildlife Preserves sells part of Troy Meadows, north of Route 280, known as Hatfield Swamp, to the Township of East Hanover and the Land Conservancy of New Jersey for the bargain price of under $4,000 an acre, with a restrictive covenant and a management agreement. End of quote. In the future, if the council enters into negotiations with Wildlife Preserves to purchase part or all of Troy Meadows, there is an established baseline price to begin those negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, for your information, Parsippany was negotiating with Wildlife Preserves at the same time, 2009, in that same time period. In fact, we had commitments from the state of New Jersey for Green Acres funding. We had commitments from the county for open space. We had commitments from the Morris Land Conservancy, and the township itself was going to use open space money. We negotiated for 2 years, all right, for the 1,500 acres in Parsippany. In fact, about 100 acres of that, the Army Corps of Engineers was interested in for flood mitigation in the center. So in all of that time, Wildlife, one element of it was talking to us, and Len Ferriello was saying we're not interested, so it was going back and forth. But the parties that were talking to us wanted a guarantee that there would never, ever be hunting on that property, and they wanted to maintain, even if they sold it to us, they wanted to maintain control of it through their rangers still patrolling it and enforcing their no hunting. As you know, the state issues hunting licenses, and so they were not happy to hear that. And that when the negotiations period ended, we lost the state money, and then the whole thing kind of fell apart. But we never really did come to an agreement with them. They just did not want to sell. So nothing ever happened. But we were there at the same time. In fact, I walked through that property, the Hanover property and part of the township property, with Wildlife Preserves, and nothing ever came of it, unfortunately. Yeah. They had to, and as a matter of fact, you just read in there that they're patrolling it. They're still controlling it. I believe their rangers still patrol that. I think you read that in there. I would love for us to buy it, but the primary reason I supported going RCW is that Highlands area of Wildlife Preserves, which is developable. I mean, it's not wetlands, okay? That still serves as a buffer to the wetlands. So as far as I'm concerned, their philosophy is to preserve that property, and all we did was help them.
Thank you.
Actually, my question is
Oh, there it goes. It's working now. Yeah.
kind of relevant to this. When are they rewiring so?
That's part of our budget. We gotta work.
It's in the budget, it was passed. Is that going to be done soon?
Got no clue. I can find
Yes, it
out
will be, but
next meeting.
Right now, we have to introduce the capital ordinance, put the money in position. It looks like we're going to be introducing that capital ordinance on the 15th. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll introduce the ordinance on the 15th. And so I just got from the Finance Department the whole capital budget, which was timely now. So you'll see the capital budget introduced on the 15th. So that will move us forward on that. We've already spoken to Mike Hardy, our purchasing agent, to look ahead for that as well.
Right, and just my other question is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think audits for prior years is due by the end of June.
Yes, it is. And as soon as I was sitting in the chair of wearing both hats, which I really filled before you actually appointed me for that, or they appointed me for that, I did call up the auditors, and I said, I guess I called them on a couple of days prior to the 30th, and I said, I know you know, and we did reach out to them and said, we're expecting you to come in any day, and they have come out. We have put documentation together, but just as early as yesterday morning, on a list of things for finance to work on with me, my number one thing was, where are they, and when will they be back out to finalize that? So they have been out.
Is there any estimated date when the order would be?
Oh, well, I would hope that before August 1st that it will be completed. They are saying we owe them some additional information, but as you know, if you've had any experience with audits, they can come out and be researching a lot of other information, and that's what we told them yesterday. We said, we have plenty of things for you to review to get the audit done. And it was very disheartening when I came that, they hadn't come out. And they didn't really have a real explanation as to why, except for a few items that they needed to be put in proper position. And we've even complied with those things. So I'm waiting. And what I will do is you will get an update at the next meeting.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. But we're on it. And it's important. It needs to be done.
Excuse me, I'm not used to speaking in front of the board. But, my name is Ken Riola. I live on 57 Norman Ave, and I just like to put a face. I come to a couple of meetings. I got emails from Ken Dolsky, and really just I have a 21-month-old boy, and if these power lines go through, I mean, he's going to be all his playing area will be taken up. The actual power lines will be on top of my shed. I mean, and then they have to, besides going into my property, they're going to have to cut down any kind of foliage beyond that, which will be almost over my house, because my house extends a little bit further back than most houses on the block. So I mean, these things will be, over my head. I mean, it's ridiculous, and I just can't believe they could really, do this, and then the pipeline. Besides that, and I purchased 5 years ago, and this is a big purchase. I mean, I purchased when the market was a little higher, and now my house is worth half of and I don't know. It's just really tough, I just wanted to say that, and I just hope the right decision is made. And thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, please sign in.
Nicholas Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. I'm not going to be able to make the meeting on the 15th, so I have papers. I emailed the same thing, but I want to submit it to the council. And I also have one paper here, only one copy, and it's pretty interesting. Lawns don't make for green yards. It's if you have too perfect a lawn, it's actually another form of impervious surface. And it ends with a stormwater detention basins, how they actually don't work and make the problems worse. And paper I'm going to submit to the council is no compromise with RD, open space for all 26 acres at the water view. The note, it's entitled No Use Afterwards, RD's Water View. I hope you find it interesting or inspiring to start a new period, maybe in the history of Parsippany, because we've reached a level, there is no balance anymore. And if there is such a thing as a balance, these corporate developers should be allowed maybe redevelopment only. And if we're not going to conform to Highland standards and New Jersey DEP, we're just setting ourselves up for problems of the future. The Highlands conformance doesn't say you can't develop. It says if you do develop, you have high standards to preserve the integrity and the traditional land use and the protection of water for the future. And I'll just make one short comment here, and I really believe this, that we confuse thinking with imagining. And that was demonstrated when RD's maps had no contours, no slopes, no trees, no wetland borders or realms. We just imagine it'll all come out just fine without real due diligence. So I'd like to submit these.
If you can give it to the clerk,
Sure.
so she can make copies for all of us.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Nick.
And yeah, I'd like to say one more thing about these power lines. From my experience with trying to prevent, being one of many people who tried to prevent the Roseland Susquehanna power lines from imposing themselves on the scenic views of the national park and the Delaware Water Gap, which is their creed is the organic act to preserve unimpaired for future generations, they were totally unsuccessful. They could have put them underground, like you're saying, but the richest country in the world doesn't want to spend the money. They want to do it as cheaply as possible for the benefit of the utility, and that's it. So it's a formality. And good luck if you do get an alternative route. You never know until you try, but not to be pessimistic, but to be realistic, I really doubt if they're going to comply with any attempts by one municipality or another to really change the route, or especially put them underground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add something to, I forgot to say something before, but I would wait until other people, everybody else has had a chance.
No, sorry, you've already.
Okay,
come up.
that's okay.
That's just our guidelines.
No, hey.
Sorry.
Pat Pataccio, 182 Hawkins Avenue. Just quickly, can you tell me if you can discuss anything about the settlement with Lakeville Gardens tonight, or the settlement with Sound Choice? Can you discuss any of that? Because you haven't voted on it yet, I
Yeah,
guess.
those are items that will be discussed in closed session.
Okay.
They're not appropriate for open session at this time.
Okay. The indoor tennis facility. I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to mention it now, looking at the resolution and everything, and the money and the cost. You know, I don't have a problem with an indoor tennis court, but do we have people that are really interested in learning tennis at the senior center, getting a professional to come in here, hiring a director? I mean, to me, that's nuts. Unless you know for sure that this money is not going to be wasted, I think it's a, you know, which should be rethought about. 19 Littleton Road. Does anybody know where that is exactly? I don't.
Yeah, that's Jimmy Vigilante's.
Oh, okay, that's
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Okay, the emergency purchase of outdoor transformers, etc., at the wastewater treatment plant. It says that it's an emergency. Is any of this stuff included in our budget, or is this part of the budget, or is this something new and now we have to dig up money? Okay, the emergency purchase, the outdoor transformers and all the other things for the wastewater. Okay, I'm asking if this stuff was originally included in the budget, or this is a true emergency that we're going to have to hit money someday.
Before you answer, do you have anything else, or is that your last question?
No, it's not my last question.
Okay.
If a sunshine law was violated, what is the consequences of that? Can you answer me that? And also, I've asked since January to get answers to this correspondence that I had given to the council. And I expected some answers tonight on that, but from the look of things, I don't think I'm going to get it. I'll wait until next week. After next week, I don't know what to tell you. All I can say is there's no transparency in Parsippany. Okay, that's it.
Paul, about the
Yes, Pat, that is a true emergency. Actually, it spanned over a couple of years, and that is something essential that needs to be fixed. It was an emergency at the time, and as a result, quite honestly, it was an emergency because it posed a serious threat to the health, safety, and welfare of our residents, to prevent any future fires and/or breakdowns in the electrical supply system.
So this is additional money being added into the budget. Being added, it's not in the budget. That's my question was, is any of this included in our budget? Or was it something that just happened and now we have to dig up money? And how much money is it going to cost?
That will be presented at the next council meeting, Pat.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anybody else?
I think that would be a legal question as far as the sunshine.
Oh, all right, let me address that. I did not review the email, so I'm not in a position to opine on that. I can tell you that very recently in another Morris County municipality, there was an allegation that the sunshine law was violated in a serious way. That allegation was referred to the Morris County Prosecutor's Office, who issued an admonishment to the individual who was accused of violating the sunshine law. So, in a blatant violation of these things are always fact specific, but in that instance, the course of action or the repercussion was an admonishment, a public admonishment from the prosecutor's office. So. Again, I'm not suggesting that there was a violation here or that it would rise to that level. I'm just telling you what happened in another Morris County municipality where there was a violation, and that was seemingly a serious violation. It involved closed session, et cetera. So.
Ms. Pacha, the question that you had, I had discussed it with you once before, is that I was not a councilman at the time, so I could not answer any of those questions for you. If I could, I would, but it doesn't.
I think one of the questions you can answer
Which one?
is the question that I asked in looking over that resolution. I asked questions on whether other towns had anything similar to it, and because this came up out of nowhere, would the council consider rescinding that ordinance? Those questions can be answered. Okay, under things to consider, B, I asked, do other towns have such a resolution? Should we check to see if other towns have something similar? Okay, that part you can answer.
Was what letter is that?
It's, it was under B. It's the last two sentences under B. Okay, so basically, I was asking for the
That would have to be researched, and I would
Mhm.
refer that to our township attorney.
Yeah, Mr. Patazzi, if I might, I think that in fairness to your questions, I think that virtually certainly all of the questions that deal with the issue of the resolution have been asked, have been answered repeatedly as a matter of the public record. The resolution itself answers many of the questions, and as I indicated at the time, you know, the question of whether to reimburse is strictly a policy question. There's New Jersey case law specifically on point that addresses that question. And, you know, again, I think that a review of the public record, which would include the resolution itself, minutes and tapes of prior council meetings, I think you will see that every
No, what I
question-
saw was that the council went ahead and voted on an ordinance and a resolution that you brought forward to them after Mayor Barbario and Brian Stanton were investigated for a meeting of January 13th.
Yeah,
Which, please, okay, don't tell me they answered the questions. They did not. Don't sit here and tell me that. I come to these meetings, John. I am not ignorant and I am not deaf. Okay?
and I don't
That's
mean-
your opinion, and we know where I stand now. So right now, I am done with talking to council. I'm asking you, not council, I am asking you as councilman to make your decision.
Well, Ms. Patacci, again, your
And whether or not
your
you
question
wanna be
has
transparent or
has
not.
legal implications, and I think that all of your questions have been addressed.
It
I think a fair
directly
reading of the
turns
public.
back to legal ramifications, directly relates back to that meeting of January 13th, 2013. So now you're telling me that it does relate to something that happened that shouldn't have happened, that the town does not know what happened in that meeting. These questions were never answered by anyone. The only thing that came out of that was the fact that Mayor Barbario and Mr. Stanton got reimbursed for attorney fees prior to when a resolution went into effect. You made a resolution effective October 18th.
That's not correct.
Brian Stanton on 10/17 was issued a check. The mayor was issued a check on December 10th. $5,662 for Brian, $5,000 for the mayor. Okay? So, how can you sit here and tell me, first that the mayor said there was no meeting, okay? Then Brian admitted there was a meeting. Then we had special prosecutors come in and find out that it's not going to go any further. So they dropped it. And that was all eaten up, and everybody said okay to that. Okay? But now, at the end of that year, you give this council, the old council, not all of them, a resolution to reimburse the mayor. Their legal fees were back in April. This resolution did not become effective until October, if I am not mistaken, October 8th. So you reimbursed, you put something, you approved something on a specific date. That is the date it begins. We don't backtrack. That was my biggest thing, and you know what that was it, and you knew that. And I asked for reimbursement at the same time. I asked that question that night, whether it was directly related to Mr. Stanton and the mayor. Nobody opened their mouths. We can get reimbursed. If they were nice, they'd donate it back to the town, donate it to the community center. But this cannot be called, there's legal ramifications now or whatever, because that's supposed to all be away. It was nothing, when that prosecutor determined that it wouldn't go any further, this resolution never should have went out.
All right.
Because this just directly reverts right back to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, see no one else come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, here comes Roy.
Oh, hold on.
You get 2.5 minutes.
Oh, stop.
I want to make it better, but Yankees are winning.
Are they? Roy Messmer, 10 Drumlin Drive. A couple quick things. Well, first of all, tonight, I see Mr. Snyder's here, Justin's here, Ed's here. Are they all here for a closed session, or just...
That's classified, Mr.
Oh,
Mesmer.
come on. It's not joke hour. No, because I'm glad Justin's here, because something I'm going to bring up later. On page 4 of the paperwork tonight, the agenda, is this a tax appeal settlement with all these apartments? You can just answer me yes or no real quick. Am I?
No.
Okay. It's not. It's going to be okay. Page 5, that Manor Lake Dam, is that the little pond down from the ball field, or is that the big lake?
One by the ballpark is Mirror.
It's Mirror.
Manor is,
Okay, that's.
I think that's Intervale.
Okay. Well, good news today. A house on Route 202 next to Badgiola's, the new that was boarded up, because that was going to be on one of my lists to give the administration. A lot of bad stuff was going on in that house, so I don't know what happened today, but it took a while. It was boarded up, or trucks were there.
Deli in the gas station?
Yeah.
That one right next door?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah. It's about the only good news I have to say tonight. It's Paula, at the end tonight, can you just give us the status of that house on Moraine? It's a year and 2 months now. A gentleman was arrested there for growing drugs in his basement, and the house is a piece of, it's horrible looking. Let's put it this way. We have an ordinance on the books, as Mike DiPiero will go back to, was when Jack Conway had worked on it, that homes have to be kept in a certain order so the other property values aren't diminished, decrease. This is a horrible looking house. It's been a year and 2 months since I brought it to the attention of the administration. Subsequent to that, I knew something else was going on in that house. I made a phone call. Guy was arrested in the basement. He was growing pot in the basement. Okay. With Justin here tonight, Mayor, are we going to get that boarding house letter out with the tax advice?
I have everything here.
Okay. All right. It's going to go out, though?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
good.
I went out.
Yeah, and I want to just review, actually certain things. This last week, I was going around the town, and I might want to strengthen it a little bit more. Not the ordinance itself, but there's certain things I want to...
Oh, well, no, that would be the ordinance.
Yeah, not the letter. You're talking
No, the
about
letter. The letter's
yeah,
fine, right?
That's fine. That
We
letter's
added the
fine.
penalty, the fine.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have that. That's fine, that letter.
All right. The next thing, this has been going on for since January. What is the situation with our insurance? What do you guys call it? PFQ? A proposal?
Yeah, that's in my court. It is almost ready to go out. I have to be out of town the next 3 days, but next week it will go out.
Because John, it's been every meeting. Somebody in the council
It'll
is
be
gonna
out.
bring
It
up
will be
next
out.
month,
It will
next
be out.
month,
It
next
will be
month.
out next
I brought
week.
up last month. Somebody, administration should sit down with Ryan Graham. He's being grossly overpaid. I listed out the paperwork last month. Other towns are paying between $18 to $20, not $38.50 per employee. All right, last week, Paul at the end, it was a very long meeting, gave a report on Skyview sewer problem. Can you, after I sit down, can you give us an update on that and approximately what course we're at right now? But I do have a question on it. Was that because the, how do I say this clearly? Was the initial construction, how do I say this, not approved, was not spec'd right? I mean, what caused this problem up there? I mean, all of a sudden, Skyview's been there since when, Lou? 10, 12 years that developed?
Yeah.
20 years?
Yes.
Now all of a sudden we have this problem. Now we also know we have a problem with Glenmont Commons with the water pressure problem. Now a very ignorant person could figure that out when you allow homes to be built up on a cliff like this, and I don't know how you get water to 389. That happens to be Mossberg's place, by the way. You got a nice deal on that one. It's unbelievable. So the insurance, I want to get some answers from next month now, John, next meeting, and I'd like to get a little bit more of a recap on this sewer situation, because that's probably why you guys have been telling me for years, we don't want to touch that reserve, Mr. Mesmer. I know, we don't want to touch that reserve. Was one of the reasons? Yes or no?
Well,
Skyview, God bless.
I mean, I can't give you that answer right now. I'll research it even further, but Skyview failed, so we had to, of course, an emergency. And now we're trying to, I don't want to get into too many details, but we're trying to go through a route that works for Skyview and other parts of the community up there as well, instead of going and sending our sewers to other towns.
That's it?
But that's an emergency fund. Anything can happen to any line. I don't know the whole formulas. I know Paula knows them, but we'll have a more detailed answer for you next week, Roy.
What about?
I'll
The other
answer your
que- he had another
questions,
question.
Roy. You asked about 48 Moraine. Roy, as you know, Rena Plax, who passed probably about a month ago, actually was very much on top of that situation. And the last update that she gave me was the homeowner did submit all of his plans to the zoning board in terms of what improvements they're going to make. So I could certainly follow up on that, Roy. As far as Skyview, as the mayor pointed out, there was a major trunk line collapse, so that became an emergency. So that is why we are evaluated. In my presentation, we evaluated 3 options, and the township received approval from the state to send its waste to the Greystone wastewater treatment plant.
Also, you asked on the clarification, Manor Lake is the smaller lake, Intervale Lake is the larger lake. On your question, you asked which one was which, so I just wanted to let you know when I had my conversation with Justin, he confirmed that.
That's Mare Pond.
Yeah, Bear Pond, but I just wanted to let you know which one we're talking about. Manor Lake is the smaller lake that we're dealing with.
Paula, do we have any update on the Glenmont Commons? We were receiving emails from residents up there about those lines. Any?
As a matter of fact, the township did receive the draft report. It was reviewed, edits were provided, so now we're just waiting for that final report to be turned to the township and reviewed by our attorney, and then we're going to take it from there.
Just so
Thank
you
you.
know, Council President, we've been on the Glenmont Commons situation for a very long time, and we're trying to resolve what we can resolve.
Right, no, I know, because we've been receiving
Yeah,
numerous emails
Right.
from different people.
And I've been copying on all. We did actually meet with the Property Owners Association president, and our engineer was there, our water superintendent, Ellen, the mayor. Earl was there. Yep. So we did meet on that. We discussed the final. Mike was there. So we did. I think it was a very productive meeting. So right now, the next step is to get that final report and meet with the condo association board with regard to that. Mhm.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mrs. Sandman. In reference to the self-insurance, as BA, will you be reviewing the RFQs as well?
Yes, I certainly
Yes.
will be involved with it, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Bob Bars, I was of the impression that I was
State your
told,
address?
pardon?
Your address?
807 Park Road,
Okay.
that there would be discussion tonight on this yard waste ordinance, and yet I didn't hear any.
I think that was tabled.
Pardon?
That was tabled.
It was tabled.
It was
removed
tabled?
Yeah, it was removed from the agenda
Why?
because it was determined that it was not ready for action.
Oh, okay. Can I say a few words about it? Sure. I read the old ordinance, the new ordinance, the way you had it 3 weeks ago. The only thing that was being changed in there was from 7 days to 2 days. My gut feeling is, my personal feeling is, there doesn't need to be any ordinance whatsoever. I don't know why there is an ordinance being put forward. The 10-foot rule only applies to yard waste that's not in a container, and we're talking about plastic bags or garbage cans here, or yard waste bags, so therefore that doesn't really apply. I think that was put in there over 20 years ago when you had vacuum trucks, and that, really hasn't happened in, 24 years. The other thing is, I look at people that put bags out at the edge of the street as people that are doing something to keep their property looking nice. Okay, they're cleaning up their yard. If they get it out a day early, they get it out a couple days early. They do it when they can do it. They do it when the weather permits. They get it out there. The town picks it up when they can. In the fall, that's a big problem. I know that. So if there's any ordinance, I think in the fall that ordinance should be null and void from September to December, because, the town of Parsippany really can't say on any given day, we are going to pick up your yard waste here today, come hell or high water. It goes right out the window. And I understand that. It's just an overburdening situation. So all I'm saying is, I don't think there needs to be an ordinance at all. I think what you have is perfectly good. Please do not reduce it to 2 days. I mean, that's just putting a large burden on the homeowner. I mean, I got people around me that never do anything to their yard. Okay, I might bag 100, 140, 150 bags a year. I got people next door to me, they don't bag it, they haven't bagged in 10 years. Okay, now, because my bags are out for 4 or 5 days at the curb versus their yard, which looks better? Because I got some bags out there, my yard doesn't look good, but their yard, looks terrible because they do absolutely nothing to it. So, there's a give and take here, and I really don't feel there needs to be an ordinance. That's basically it. One other quick question. Right now, they're putting a gas line in from Route 53 inward on Lane Street, and there's a guardrail that goes over, I'll call it a paper street. There's nothing there. The guardrail extends the entire length of this paper street. I was wondering what we could do to have an opening in that guardrail to allow bikes, ladies with baby carriages, or just walkers or hikers to get through there versus this guardrail that extends right into the woods and to the east on both sides.
We have it. Okay. I just want to say that I know you have been in contact with my office, talking with Ann with regard to the yard waste, and although we tabled it because the document that we had, we wanted to modify it. That's really off the table. We did put some documentation. We did also find we send to the council so that they have it when we talk about providing, if we do move forward after further discussion, whether it's required to have an ordinance or not. I will say that it did say very clearly in the model ordinance from the DEP that if something is in a container, the 10 feet rule is not applicable.
Correct.
So, I mean, we that documentation has been distributed to council, and it's just for this evening's purposes, we were not able to get into we weren't able to get it, because as soon as that meeting was over, we met with Greg from DEP, I wish he was. He's more cooperative. He thinks he's
I've spoken
got
with
his eyes
Greg many
closed over.
times.
Yes.
Nice guy.
Greg is
tough
good.
job.
Tough job.
And he
tough
does
job.
it as good as he
And
can.
Paula
I
and I
understand
met,
that.
yeah.
And that's where I'm coming from.
Yes, we knew that.
In stating that what he tries to do and what he accomplishes really doesn't fit into this 2-day. Just doesn't. Just doesn't.
And you did say it, especially on October, November, when the fall comes. You could say an amount of days. I mean, you would hope you could do it within 7 days, but the council, is going to be aware of that.
I think people should be applauded for when they can and when the weather permits, doing whatever they have to do in their yard and getting it in whatever container I use old garbage cans as much as I can, but if you get it out there and it's there a couple days, I look at it as that's life. That's life in Parsippany,
The cost would be prohibitive to try to do it within X amount of days, especially in October, November, because it's very difficult to pick up 40, 30 bags because of the nature of what happens during those months.
I agree.
But we thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, see no one else come forward, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stan, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi. Mr. Karifi?
Yes. Okay, ordinance number 2014:19, Mr. DePiero.
An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, providing for the acquisition of property and preliminary costs associated with the renovation of an existing building for township services for the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills and appropriating $700,000 therefore, and providing for the issuance of $665,000 in general improvement bonds or notes of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills to finance the same. The notice for the ordinance above was published in a Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on June 20th, 2014. Motion to accept ordinance 2014:19.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Paluso. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton, Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. This time, I entertain a motion to open up the public on this ordinance and this ordinance only.
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton, Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Okay, see no one come forward? Make a motion to close the public hearing
So moved.
on this ordinance. Motion made by Mr. DePiero,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso, Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading, and that a notice of final passage for said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2014-095. I'd like to make a motion to table that based upon.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a quiet in the room so?
Yes, can you guys,
Please?
can you two please, just, if you're going to have a conversation, just step into the hallway? Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me repeat that because we didn't have order in the chambers. Resolution R 2014-095: I'd like to make a motion to table that based upon a communication I received from Paula that a presentation would like to be provided to us from Alpha Dog on August 12th.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Paluso, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Well, a motion to table usually requires a date. Table until when?
Well,
August 12th to be a
August 12th.
Until our August 12th meeting. So that's part of the motion.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Mr. Stanton?
Or 2014-016, Resolution Township Council, Township Parsippany Troy Hills, adopt an updated plan document for an existing emergency services volunteer length of service award plan.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton. Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Resolution 2014-107, Mr. Valori.
Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills authorizing the award of a professional services agreement with EPIC Solutions LLC.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Valori, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
No.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
Mr. Valori,
Yes.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes. Closed session, resolution, whereas the Open Publics Meeting Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss attorney-client privilege litigation matters, and contract negotiations. And whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting.
Second.
Motion made by myself, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso? Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
We're on.
Motion to reconvene into open session.
Motion made by Mr. Stanton, seconded by Mr. Valori. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes. Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mr. Stanton. Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Good night,
Good night.
Good night, everyone.